So I came up with this talk title, and it's really, I found out that it's very, very in sync with other people's, what's been going on in their lives this week as well. And the title that I came up with isn't the one that went out in the email letter for the week. The one that went out, somehow I told the person that does this, talk title will be this, Donna will be doing the music, and I wrote down, are you still here? And she wrote down, are you still there? I don't know how that happened, but you know, that's one of those things. It's neither here nor there, is it? It doesn't really make any difference one way or the other. Because I'm going to continue with my talk, which was, are you still here? When you think about that phrase, it's actually one of those phrases that's very much like, what is this thing called love? If you put the emphasis in different places, you get a different answer. You can say, what is this thing called love? Or you can say, what is this thing called love? You know, you can take it and transfer it around. So that's kind of what I was thinking about when I was using this sentence. In one way, we can say, are you still here? And that's kind of a sarcastic thing to say to someone. You know, you see it in a lot of movies. Some woman will say to some man when she wants him to be gone, she'll look up and very disdainfully say to him, are you still here? And he knows then he's supposed to leave. Or some person will say this, some boss will say this to an underling, invite them into the office and then chastise them a little bit, and then when they're finished, they'll look up at them and say, are you still here? Oh, and the person knows it's time to leave. That's one way that the phrase can be used. It can be used as a way of putting somebody down or dismissing them. Are you still here? Then there's another way of using it, where you say to somebody, are you still here? And that you're glad they are here. You're happy to see them, and you're glad that they have not left yet. And you're very, and it's a welcoming, enjoying kind of phrase. Oh, are you still here? Oh, good. I'm glad you're here because I wanted to connect with you again. And I was worried, or I was concerned that you had already left and that I had missed you, or that we hadn't had this connection that I want to make. Are you still here? Wonderful. In that way. But then I started thinking deeper about how this can be used as a spiritual phrase. You know, it's very important for us to recognize what here means. Well, let's go back even further. It's a good thing to know what you means. Are you? Well, who is you? Who is the you that is speaking here? Who is the you that is being spoken to? Are you still here? Are you here? Are you present? Who is the you? Who is it? Is it simply your outer personality? And is that where we live and have our being? No. Though we all have that, and we start claiming that that's who we are. Somebody asks you, hi, who are you? And we give them a name, we give them the designated tonal vibration that we have been given from birth. We give them that, and then usually what we do is we tell them what we do. We give them our job. And we say, hi, I'm Terry Dearmore, I'm a minister, or hi, I'm Terry Dearmore. And usually I don't say that, because it changes the whole tone of the conversation as soon as I do. Somebody go, hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. Who are you? I'm Terry Dearmore. What do you do? I'm a minister. Oh. Hello. And they change, and there's a change in consciousness. So I usually say, I'm a retired music guy. Oh, music, all right. And they loosen up, and they like that. Having said all that, I'm really getting at the point of the I of you, the you-ness that creates who you are. We tend to live in the outer and say to ourselves, I am what I do, what I've been, what I think, what I believe. There's a big trap in that. When we do this sort of thing, we connect so deeply with the outer that any change in circumstances or situation can either make us happy or make us unhappy, or it can make us feel very secure or very insecure, depending on what's going on. A great example of that is what's going on right now all over the world. There appears to be these great turmoils that are caused here, there, everywhere. It seems to be that there is just some sort of upheaval that is occurring. It's occurring in our country, in our politics, in our economy. It's occurring in our infrastructure. There's all these things that seem to be in need of attention from all of us. And so the you of us, each of us that lives in the outer, tends to focus on those things. And we lose track of the things that are going well for us in our lives. We just miss it totally. I saw a little meme the other day. I like to cruise Facebook every once in a while just to see if there's something I can learn. And I do. I learned some things from that. And one of the great things I learned from Facebook a couple of days ago, somebody had posted one of these little memes, you know, little, it's like a signboard on the highway, and so I'm reading it, and it says, there are people in this world that would be so happy to have what you have. And I thought about that, and I thought, gee, you know, I tend to get into that you-ness on the outside of me that says there isn't enough, or I don't have enough, or I wish I had more, or I wish what I did have was different, or, you know, constantly wanting these kind of changes in my life and not focusing on being grateful for that which I have, and knowing that there are people that if I took them out, blindfolded them, brought them to my house, and handed them my checkbook and said, here you go. Now this is yours. They would cry for joy because of the situation they're in life. They would not know what to do. They would be so overwhelmed with happiness and with joy. And here I am saying, it's not enough, or I wish there was more, or I wish it was different. Don't we all do that to some degree? I mean, if you think about it, we kind of do. That's because we live our I am, our you-ness, in the outer. We're identifying so much with the outer. So that takes care of our you. Okay? Then the here-ness. Let's just skip the other part and go to the here part. You know, Jesus, our way shower, recognized this. Even in his day, 2,000 and some odd years ago, he recognized the fact that we use our consciousness to look outward more than we use our consciousness to look inward. We just do. This out here is so distracting. It's so distracting. It's like pretty little baubles and shiny, bright objects that are moving around and distracting us from what's going on inside ourselves. And so we focus on this outer stuff. And Jesus was speaking to this in the Gospel of Luke. He says the time will come, it's here now, when people will be looking for the kingdom of heaven, and they'll say, look, it's over there, it's over here, it's there, and everywhere. And I tell you that it will not come by observance. For the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's within you. Now, there's some translations of that says it's in the midst of you. And then the interpreters of that say Jesus was speaking about himself. He was saying the kingdom of heaven is right here in the midst of you, in the center of you. If that were true, then that would miss the whole point, wouldn't it? Because he just said before that, it doesn't come by observance. And obviously you could observe him. So if he's speaking of himself, then he's contradicting what he just said. He's talking about inside. He's talking about something deeper. In the midst of you, in the midst of who you are, in your consciousness, in the center of your being, that's where it is to be found. This kingdom of heaven. This kingdom of heaven is that place inside, or that piece of consciousness, or that idea that we all have within us, where everything is okay because we like it just as it is. We don't have any outside preference that we would prefer. It's almost there, but that's not quite it. We don't go there. We don't go there because there's nowhere left to go. We have found the center of being once again. You know, that's where we come from. That's who we truly are. That's the you-ness of each one of you and me. And yet we miss that sometimes. We miss it by focusing so much on the outer. When we say, be here now, most of the time, don't we focus on what's going on out here? Isn't that the here-ness that we immediately go to in our mind's eye, or in our heart, or in our consciousness, what we hear and what we think? Here is an appearance of that which is in the outer to most of us when we hear the word here. But the here-ness that Jesus is speaking of, and that all great mystical thinkers are speaking of, is a here-ness within. Now, I left a word out. Are you still here? Are you still here? In the here-ness, in the midst of you, are you still? As opposed to saying, are you still here? Say to yourself, I am still here. I'm still here. The stillness within me is who I am, where I live, where I move, where I have my being, and it's closer to me than even thought. Than even thoughts. Because thoughts are emanations outside, mental emanations outside. And we tend to think of the mental as being spiritual, but it's not. It's still physical. Mental is still physical. It requires motion. It requires some sort of impetus. And it requires something to push off of. There's an other and always. We're still living in that world of consciousness, of duality. But when we get to the place where we are still and here, then life takes on a different quality. A completely different quality. It takes on a vastness. It's as though this point of reference that we finally reached explodes outward. Because suddenly we are aware that that oneness is infinite. It's outside of time. It's outside of anything linear. It's outside of anything physical. And yet, everything linear, time-wise, physical, is within it, fully encompassed, so that we can live our outside life and still be here in the center of our being. Now, is that an easy thing to do? No. I love this new commercial where this girl says something about insurance. Did you read it? No. You didn't read it. That's the same thing for us. Is it easy to do? No. It isn't easy to do. Why? Because we don't practice it. We don't practice it. It requires practice. Getting to the point where we have eliminated any idea of who we think we are and are simply being. What a scary thing. It's very much like the person who's hanging by a thread over a cliff, just hanging by the roots of a branch that is about to break. And we're screaming, "Help! Help!" And a voice says to us, "I'm here." "Help!" we scream. "If you're here, then help me." Then let go. Then let go. We look down. We look up at the ground crumbling around the branch. And what do? Do we let go? Most of the time we say, "Is there anybody else there?" That's usually what happens with us. We look for some alternate method of doing the obvious, letting go. Have thine own way. Have thine own way. You are the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me after thy will. While I am waiting, yielded and still. That's why I chose that old hymn today, because it's about being still, being here, being you.